Yes, think of one person at one time. Don't have a group. The group one is in the last part. All beings in the 10 direction. Basic, we always do the yourself, your loved ones, family members, then teacher if you want to, friends. So strangers, we have our meditators together in the hall. It is good to have kindness towards each other. It's very good. And after that, we have the people you don't like. Then we spread out to all beings. But you must, the basic, fundamental is the individual that you must cultivate for your daily life. Where you meet with your loved ones all the time, you meet with strangers, you meet with your colleagues. So it's very important that you develop a metta, kindness, caring for those people that you meet all the time. So it is the fundamental, the basic. And when you spread out the metta is when the metta becomes very strong. Then it spread out to all beings. So it's only for those who have developed very strong metta, then it develop to all beings. But to us, it doesn't matter. We practice that anyway. We practice it anyway so that when the time comes, when your metta becomes very strong, then you're able to spread out to all beings. And if you don't have time, you can just go for one person. If you say, I only have 5 minutes, you just go to yourself or to your loved ones. Just one person, and then you can stop it. You can develop very strong concentration in your loved ones because they are very pleasant objects. So the mind will stay there on pleasant objects. So you can develop a lot of feelings. So for very close friends, very good friends, when you think of them and you radiate your loving kindness, you see, comes out. The feeling becomes very strong of caring. So it's a very good object. If you have close friends, somebody that you really like, really love, or your children, or your parents, or uncles, or things, or someone like that, then when you become very strong, then you go to the lesser one, the less strong ones. So it can carry on that feeling that you have developed that is very strong. They can push on to the next objects of your metta. So it helps to push on. So you have to do one at a time, right? So it's very important to do it to your loved ones, your family members, because you meet them all the time, every day. So it's very important that do that to your children, to your spouse, so that you have less conflict. When you have more caring, you have less quarrels. Then you have more loving kindness towards each other by words and action. Then you have a more peaceful home, more happy home. So metta is a very important meditation for lay people as well as monks, for interaction. Whereas vipassana, our mindfulness meditation is very inwards, a lot of equanimity and mindfulness. So it is good to balance up with our metta meditation, kindness meditation, for interaction. It is very outwards, very caring when you, in daily life, you need to associate with people. And if you have a lot of caring, they like you. So it's easy to do your work. If you have a good rapport with your colleague, it's easy to do sales. If you can, people feel you're caring, that you're not going to cheat them, you're not going to harm them. So it's a very good meditation to get along with people for business as well as for work, for associating with even strangers. So metta is a very, very good meditation to practice. So we balance up the vipassana, the insight meditation or mindfulness meditation by also develop our loving kindness meditation. Yeah? Yes. Any question? Yes. Jhanas. Jhanas are mental absorption, and the mind absorbed with the objects. That is, you could get absorption in metta meditation, in the practice of metta. You can go very high. Supposed to go as far as the third jhanas, absorption. So, I'll give the example of jhanas in the practice of metta. Okay, we are not aiming for the absorption actually in the practice of metta. We are just using metta for our relationship, for our working with people, for our relationship with our loved ones, our families. And we use metta for calmness, to make our mind peaceful, concentrated and calm, so that we can switch it over to mindfulness meditation and develop wisdom. But if you go deeper into the practice of loving kindness for absorption, then it is when you direct to one object, one person. So, one person. So the person that you like very much, then when you direct your mind towards that person, then it stays there at the object, and a lot of feeling, love will start to come out. That is not the sexual love or sensual love. It is the caring love. So the obstruction will arise when it becomes sexual, if it's for the wife or your girlfriend or boyfriend. But that will be already well developed to a very strong degree. So at that time, you need to switch object to somebody that is not so sexual. But in the beginning, no problem at all. It takes a long time before you can develop that hindrance to arise. So if the hindrance arises, some may not feel the hindrance. Some can go a very long way without the hindrance, even to someone you love, even to your spouse. Depends on individual. And so when the mind develops very, very strong mindfulness on the object, and some teacher says that just this object will get into the jhanas, into absorption. But according to the book, when the mind becomes very strong, then it's spread out. It's spread out. That object becomes all beings. So it's not just the perceiving that object strongly in your mind. It becomes all beings, like the mind absorbed into all beings. So that's where the 10 direction comes in. Beings in all 10 direction. And the mind stays in love, just love. So that is absorption, no thoughts. We are using thoughts for beginning, but we are using for I, loved ones, strangers. But as you get deep into samadhi, the words do not come out. The words cannot come out because the mind becomes so quiet that words do not come out. Then just the feelings, that overflowing of feeling just keep on boiling and boiling, becomes very great. And feeling becomes very strong and joyful in the first absorption. But as it goes to the second, it becomes even more intense. And it goes to the happiness one, the third, which is very intense. So it has a lot of happiness, a lot of joy in the metta meditation. So much more easier to get this joy than the mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation is very slow. The joy is very slow. It's not strong. But metta is very strong, very fast. So our idea is not to get into absorption, but if you want to go there, of course, it's a very wholesome mind, very, very wholesome and a lot of happiness, but you may get stuck there. So you should not get stuck there. So in order not to get stuck there, don't go too deep, so that it's easy to come back to switch it over to the mindfulness meditation. But if the mind stuck there, then you always want to go there because it gives a lot of happiness, a lot of joy. So unless you go seriously into metta, you sit for half an hour, you sit 1 hour, you sit 1.5 hours, you sit 2 hours. then you can go deep. Otherwise, if you do superficially, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, it doesn't go very deep. So in the practice of tranquility meditation, we need to develop strong concentration. And that concentration is for absorption. In the practice of mindfulness meditation, we also need to practice, to develop a mind with very strong concentration. But the concentration is built up by mindfulness. So it's two different types of concentration. In the Sankhara Upeka, when you get into insight, to the formation, equanimity of formation, the concentration is very, very strong. The stillness of mind is so still, it's not moving. Very strong, when you stay there without thoughts. It's something like absorption, but it is not absorption. Just stay there without thoughts. It is like just pure awareness. And the stillness is the objects of the meditation. And just stay there. But once it becomes achieved in the inside, then he must not stay there anymore. Then he must come out and develop his mindfulness again for further concentration. Then it gets into insight. Makkapala, path and fruition, sainthood. First stage, second, third, and fourth stage. But the basic approach of concentration is there for samatha as well as for the vipassana, insight meditation or mindfulness meditation. Concentration is different. That concentration leads to absorption. This concentration that is also required 100%, very strong concentration, but it is for insight. So there are two different types of concentration, but they are needed. They are still needed, and the mindfulness concentration also needed to be very, very strong for the insight into a very deep form of insight. The mind becomes very still. When object touches the mind, it just drops down. Cannot touch the mind. The stillness, even though you hear sound, boom, thunder, but it will not touch the mind. Just sound at once, hearing. So mind is totally still until it just stay in. External sound no longer disturb. The body sensation no longer disturb. There's no pain. There's no pain. There's no itchiness. No numbness. The body becomes very light, very comfortable, and the mind just stays still, like jhanas, but it is not jhana. It's like absorption, but it's not absorption. It is insight. Very deep stage of insight. This can be experienced if you practice. They are listed in the book. All these stages of insight, as well as this mental absorption in the jhanas, what factors to develop. Again, to absorption, the 5 factors needs to be developed. So that is the tranquility, the 5 factors that needs to be developed for tranquility as well as for mindfulness meditation. They need to be developed. Do you want me to explain it? You want to know the concentration factors? Hands up. The 5 factors that is needed for the tranquility meditation as well as for our mindfulness meditation. Now I start with the tranquility meditation, where you need to develop initial application of mind. Means to stay there in meditation, we need to put our mind towards our meditation object. So, example like metta, when you practice metta, when the mind runs away, goes away, you have to bring it back. So, the way to bring it back, which I say, is to keep repeating the words. So, if the words are not there, then you know that your initial application is not strong. It keeps running away. So, you got to keep repeating the words. May I be well. May I be peaceful. May I be happy. Or just one word. May I be happy. May I be happy. Or you like peace. May I be peaceful. May I be peaceful. May I be peaceful. It's up to you. If you want to use the 3 words, when your mind is lazy, then you need more words to energize your mind. But when your mind becomes more and more peaceful, you don't need so many words. Just 1 word is sufficient. May I be happy, happy, happy. May I be happy. When the mind gets into deeper and deeper calmness, 1 word is enough, because he cannot speak too many words. The mind, words cannot come out until the word stops by itself. Then the feeling keeps coming up, feeling of kindness and caring. Sustained application is when it stays there, it's sustained. Sustained in the object, depending on what object you have. There are 40 objects taught by the Buddha in the Tranquillity meditation. You could have elements, or you could have other objects. It stays there. Stays there means sustained application of mind. And the mind takes the object, then it doesn't run away so much. If it goes away, it comes back very quick by itself. Now, what's the difference here in our mindfulness meditation? Now, the same way we take the rising and falling as the object. But the mind keeps running. But we have a different approach, because we have the 4 objects to establish our mindfulness. But the Tranquility meditation has 1 object. So he has to keep going back to the same object of his meditation. But for us who practice on the mindfulness, we have 4 objects. As long as we still stay with the other objects that is in the 4, we are still establishing the initial application. It still stays there, never mind. The itchiness is strong. You bring a mindfulness there, it still stays there. Then it gets vichara, sustained, means it just stay there. It doesn't run away anymore. If it runs away, it comes back very quickly. Then you know that you have established the second factors of concentration. Now, what is the third factor? You get the pleasurable interest. Now that is where I talk about the intensity of this joy is different. The practice of the Tranquility meditation, the joy becomes very intense and strong. So it's very hard to pull it back to the mindfulness meditation if it's too strong. So if you practice Tranquility meditation, it gets very strong, then that becomes the difficulty in pulling it back. But in the mindfulness meditation, it's not that strong. So it's still easy to switch over to other objects. It's still easy, not that tough. Then comes the pleasurable interest. By that time, you could see different phenomena arises. You see why it is not just rise and fall. Why it goes and stops, and then goes and stops, and then it stops for a long time before it comes down. Then starts to see a lot of these phenomena because of joy factor, the interest in the mind. Then it stays. But in the Tranquility meditation, the joy is different. The joy is not of mindfulness. The joy is of concentration. And so it has different phenomena, become lightness, floating, the hair stand on ends, you feel cooling sensation. It's a different types of joy. But this mindfulness joy is different. It can see the object, can still differentiate the objects and characteristics. Then happiness arises. And this happiness, again, is the intensive joy in the Tranquility meditation. But the happiness in the mindfulness stays on object. Doesn't run away. It stays. And then the happiness is when the body feels, you observe and the body feels no pain, body feels light, body feels very comfortable, the mind very pliable, easily mold, the Buddha say. It can just mold the mind. It's like molding the flour when you add with water, and it's already well mixed, and you can make a lot of things with that. You can make noodles, you can make cakes, you can make anything you want to make with the mind. So the happiness in the practice of mindfulness, it is pliable. That's where it arises at the one-pointedness, ekaggata, one-pointedness. Now, if this is also included in the attaining of the insight, when the mind gets very concentrated, then you can see the mind and body very clearly. That is where we call access concentration, upeka samadhi, upachara samadhi, which is the same as the upachara samadhi in the concentration, tranquility meditation. It's a very high degree of concentration. But this goes into absorption, but this does not get into absorption. This gets into clarity of mind. Then you have sampajana. Minds become very clear. As you develop concentration, the hindrances are suppressed. The 5 hindrances: greed, hatred, doubts, restlessness, worries. So these are the defilements that are suppressed. Once it is suppressed, the mind becomes very clear. The top portion of the mind, very clear, translucent. Then you can see very clearly the distinction of mind and body. You see that mind is different from body. The mind is immaterial. The body is material. You can see the body totally different from the mind. So that the first insight arises after you get into excess concentration, very strong concentration. Then he sees the separation of mind and body, which is actually non-self. You become to understand selflessness. But in this case, when you get to excess concentration, they pulls into absorption. Mind and object is one. Mind absorb into the object, depending on if it is a kasina, earth. Mind is just earth. Earth is just mind. It just stay there, stillness, with the earth objects. And the 5 jhana factors, joy and happiness, keeps bubbling, keeps rising non-stop, continuous for the duration of that absorption. And that depends. If it's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes. Beginning, it is normally touch and go. Then you develop the skill to stay longer. Then there is a whole discourse on how to get your mind to absorption and stay there for a long period of time. So there is, when you come to that section, when you attain to that touch and go absorption, then you have to go into detail how your mind stays there for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, for 1 hour, 2 hours, for 1 day, 2 days, until 7 days. There's another different subtle feel of developing jhanas and how to stay there in jhanas. Otherwise, beginning is just touch and go. Touch a lot of joy, very strong joy, then it falls back. Touch and it falls back. And keep going into it and stay longer and longer. Well, here we need the 5 concentration factors, but it is different behavior. Behavior is different because the mind, instead of absorbed into the object, the mind detach. Now you see the danger in tranquility meditation and the non-danger in mindfulness. Mindfulness detach. The more he detach, the more he see clearly the object. The tranquility meditation attach. He must attach to the object until mind and object becomes one. That's where the danger is. Because he has no mindfulness. He can't distinguish that what he see and hear is real or not real. Then he thinks he's the God. Then he thinks he hears sound. Then he thinks he has attained superpowers. That's where the danger is. Then he thinks he's God. Then becomes delusion. From the kilesas that arises due to concentration, this mind get concentrated. Then when it touches the defilements, depending on what it touches. If it touches greed, the mind becomes very, very attached. It touches hatred, the mind like an explosion. Very strong ill will. When it touches delusion, the mind becomes very hallucinated. So that is a danger, a great danger in the practice of tranquility meditation. So must have very good teacher. Otherwise you go crazy. The teacher will then know how to guide you. Tell you that you're on the wrong path. You've got to come back to your proper practice. You have touched the kilesas, defilements of the mind. Do we have that in the practice of mindfulness? We have that. We have that. But the degree is very gentle. It is not strong, because every time we touch a such thing, we have mindfulness. Knowing, come back, rising, falling. Knowing, anger. Knowing, attachment. Knowing, hallucination, mental creation, which we call mental formation. Aware, come back. We have a safety net. Here there's no safety net. So the difference is very vast difference. Because the technique is different. The phenomena is different. So those who practice tranquility meditation must have very good teacher. Those who practice mindfulness is more safe, because mindfulness is leading. Here concentration is leading, mindfulness is weak. Here mindfulness builds up concentration. When mindfulness is strong, concentration becomes strong. So these are different mental states that are developed when you meditate. So therefore, once you go deep into your meditation, a good teacher is necessary. Otherwise you lost your way. Gives you wrong instruction, you lost your way. Stop your progress. Stop your insight. When you're on the right track and teacher say, no, you're on the wrong track, because he doesn't know, because he doesn't understand, he doesn't experience, then your progress just stop there. So that is the time where a teacher with great experience is very, very necessary. But when it's just the basic, no problem. It's just the basic. When you're not going anywhere, any deep, then it's no problem. You just have to come back to your four foundation of mindfulness, then you are very safe, because they are your refuge. As long as your mind stays there, you're very safe. So no problem at all. So the absorption is different from we don't call it absorption, we call it concentration. They're different, they're not the same. Our practice is not the same. They're not the same. Is it clear or not? I know it's a very deep subject, it's very profound, but it is good to have right concept, right understanding, so you will not go wrong. So it's good to know the difference. It's good because now we are practicing both. Practicing metta as well as mindfulness, practicing both. Practicing tranquility meditation as well as mindfulness meditation. Now in the mindfulness meditation, as you have the book, you read through, four foundation, even the body itself. So many ways of practicing the body, and it is also some section also concerning with tranquility meditation. The breathing in and out, it is also leads to jhana, mental absorption. It is also the samatha meditation, tranquility meditation. So we switch it to the abdomen rising and falling. So you won't get into absorption by using the abdomen rising, falling. But you can get into absorption by using the anapanasati, by the breath. You get into absorption. Unless you do it the vipassana way, do it the mindfulness way of touching. As the air goes in and out, the touching, it is long, it is short. Then it becomes the mindfulness way. Otherwise it becomes easily get into the tranquility meditation, the absorption. So for our class, we didn't go into so wide area explaining the body meditation and so many methods. Like we're talking about the elements and the 32 parts of the body that is associated with the element. Now that is the tranquility meditation, which we did not cover because it's a subject by itself, very big subject by itself. Different practice, different way of practice to get into samadhi. So we skip that, but you find that in your book. But we skip that. We just centered on the series in our four foundation that is connected to the mindfulness meditation. Yes. Is it clear or not? I hope you're not confused. Any question? Any question? Is it very difficult to understand? Yes, huh? Never mind. I'll give more and more talks. And very soon it slowly sink in. And these are meditation subjects. And what you're going to learn here with theory and practice, you can go very deep. And I hope one of these days, some of you will become guide. Your turn to guide the others. If you don't train up, when I'm gone, then nobody to guide. I'm not that young anymore. I do not know how many years I can last. I hope some of you will get the theory as well as the experience. And your turn to guide. Then I pass over the baton to you. Okay, your turn now. Brother James, pension time. It's very deep. Meditation has a lot to learn. What you're learning is just the basic. But the practice is where it's going to take you deep. For your practice, you realize that meditation can take you very, very far. Yes, very good question. We are supposed to practice on vipassana, on mindfulness, but a lot of time the mind go into samatha. Without knowing, you go towards that direction. Yes, so only when you start to see the change, otherwise you go into samadhi. And then instead of watching, knowing the samadhi, the mind stuck there, taking samadhi as an object, and you switch to samatha meditation. The mind just switch on. Just as the samatha meditation goes down to access concentration, we can switch on to mindfulness and get into realization. So if you are not aware, if you are not and if you get stuck to these, like rising and falling, if you just rise, fall, you can be 10 years in rise and fall. You're just getting samadhi. You're just getting calmness. You're not getting any insight. You don't see it's long. You don't see it's short. You don't see it's fast. You don't see it's slow. So you're just getting stuck in peacefulness of mind. Could you pass the mic? Yes.
I was asking, is it okay to stay in the absorption state for a while, to experience that experience before we consciously come out, from that and back to vipassana?
Yes, of course. But then don't stay too long. The thing is, when you get in and there's so much happiness, you won't want to come out. So the mind always searching for happiness. So that direction, he feels so much happiness and joy, and keeps getting into it. So that is why we should start with the mindfulness meditation instead of the tranquility meditation. Once they get into there, it's very hard to switch. And they find the mind don't want to switch. Because you want to see pain. No, I don't want to see pain. I want to get into happiness. I don't want to see itchiness. No, I don't want all these things. I don't want to watch the mind. Very difficult. So you want to get into, very nice. Get into the sensation. So if you accidentally get into it, no problem. Because once you build up your mindfulness, you know that one is gold, the other is diamond. So it's better to get diamond. So you should always build up your mindfulness first. But don't go into the samadhi, tranquility too deep, if possible. Unless you get into jhanas, insight, then it is very safe to get into the samadhi. So during Buddha's time, when the monk get into enlightenment, then the Buddha would teach them concentration, jhanas. They could gain psychic powers. And they are very safe when they gain psychic powers because the mind is very pure. They would not use psychic powers for evil things, for greed, for craving, for harming people. So they are very safe. But those who goes into psychic power first without the wisdom, then they create a lot of problem. They harm people, like Devadatta. His power is so strong. The Buddha says that his power is only next to the Buddha. But then, with his powers, because of greed, he tried to kill the Buddha, tried to cause desertion to the monks, and he lost his power because of defilement of mind. Because the power is built up on the wholesomeness of mind. So when the mind gets very unwholesome, the power disappears. So the danger of getting into the psychic powers is the mind could use it for evil. So that is very, very bad. But if it accidentally get into it, it's quite okay. But don't stay too long. Just come out of it, go back to the object, and see the moving objects. See objects that arises and disappear. You think you are doing mindfulness meditation, vipassana, a lot of time you get into samadhi. You just stay there and enjoy it. So you should not stay too long in samadhi, okay?